Hi there, my name is Julie Dansby and I am a professional puppeteer. And I've been a professional puppeteer since 1998, which is before many of you guys were born. Probably all of you guys, unless this is a college class. But I love puppets, and I'd like to talk to you a little bit today about how I got into puppetry and why I love puppets and different kinds of puppets that are out there. I started in puppetry when I was about 12. I'd always loved dancing, singing, musical theater, that kind of thing. But then we moved to an area where the school I went to did not have any arts programs. But the church that we were going to had a puppet team. So I'd always loved Sesame Street, The Muppet Show, all those kind of things. And I was like, well, I like puppets, so I'm going to give this a try. And I found that I really loved it. And I really had kind of a knack for it because I'd watched so much puppetry on television, watching Henson puppets and things like that. And I was like, I know what this is supposed to look like. I know what it's supposed to feel like. And it sort of launched my puppet interest at that point. Then I went to high school and college, and I did more acting and that kind of thing. But after college, I started my career. I went on tour for a while, and then I came back to Atlanta, Georgia, where the Center for Puppetry Arts is, which is the largest nonprofit organization dedicated to puppetry in the United States. And I saw they were having auditions. And I was like, well, it's not like I've never touched a puppet before. So I went to the audition, and they hired me. And that was in 1998. And I continued there until 2012 when I moved to Orlando. So during that span of about 14 years, I went from being a resident puppeteer to eventually becoming the head puppeteer there for a while. And I loved it. I strongly encourage any of you, if you're in the Atlanta area, please go to the Center for Puppetry Arts or visit their website. It's www.puppet.org. They are amazing. But let me talk to you a little bit about the kinds of puppets, because while I was there, they do everything that can be called a puppet. So I got an education in all sorts of puppetry. My first puppet team at my church was basically hand and rod puppets, which are the sort of Muppet style puppets. You use your hand to move the head, and then they have two rods, usually, that move the arms. Sometimes you can also use a glove, and I'll show you one of those a little bit later. But right now, the first thing people usually think of when they think of a puppet is a hand puppet. This is a little mouse I made. But yeah, it's just basically kind of a sock puppet that I sort of beefed up a little bit, but it moves its mouth, and you move your mouth by moving your thumb and fingers. So that's one type of hand puppet. The other type of common hand puppet is called a glove puppet, which is this type, and forgive me because I'm not left-handed and glove puppets aren't really my thing either, but this one you can move more of its body, you can move its arms and its head, but it doesn't have a moving mouth. This one you can move a mouth, so it's got a lot of facial life, but the body, not so much. It has little arms, but they don't really move much. So it depends on what you need, if you want something that moves the body or something that moves mostly the face. So hand puppets. The next kind of puppet is rod puppets. Sometimes puppets are moved just by moving the rod. This is a little mop puppet that I made, sort of for a silly Puppet Slam thing, but basically she's considered a rod puppet because you move her by moving the rods. Also, I did some rod puppetry at the Center for Puppetry Arts. And so here's kind of an example, forgive me because I'm not very good at editing, but this is an example of a rod puppet that I would have done there. Much more sophisticated, a big stage, that kind of thing. But she's still operated by a rod. She has kind of a stick down there, and then there's rods you can see on her arms that are being used. So that's another more sophisticated kind of rod puppet. Another type of puppet that you'll see a lot is a marionette. You don't see too many of these very often in America, but you see them a lot in Europe. This is basically a marionette is a string puppet. It's operated by strings. This is one of my kids' toys. I don't really have very many marionettes at home. But basically you twist the rod, and you can make his little legs move. You can make his head move, that kind of thing. So this is a simple marionette. Other types of puppets include shadow puppets. I love shadow puppets. This is a shadow puppet I made. As you can see, it's really small. But what you can do is you can put it on an overhead projector, which I like to use. And then you can make little pictures, templates. I don't know if you can see that, it's a Glee Club. And so this little person can come into this environment. If it's on an overhead projector, it can be projected on the wall and be really big. She's got a little mech that I made so she can raise and lower her hand. So basically, but it's really simple, just, cut out of cardboard. Very simple mix with just some wires and coffee stirrer stuff. But they're fun and they're simple and you can create your own things. Another thing that I love to do is found object puppetry. Found object means anything, okay? Anything you can find. It doesn't have to be a fancy, store-bought, expensive puppet. This is a toilet paper roll. And so, but if you want to play around with it, you can make it alive. Because basically, what is a puppet? A puppet is an inanimate object that is given the illusion of life through a puppeteer. And so basically, if you want to make this, into something that's alive, you can just do that through the movement, and anything can be a puppet. You don't have to have anything fancy. Or if you want to get a little more sophisticated, you can give it a little face. There, this is one I made with my daughter to be scary, because, in this day and age, running out of toilet paper is probably one of the most scariest things that can happen. So there's a little, but what is important with a puppet is the eyes, because we give the illusion of thought, the illusion of a brain, the illusion of sentience through eyes. So even though this one doesn't have any eyes, if I move it into the environment and I react to something and I look with it, suddenly you get the idea that it's alive, that it's thinking, that it's seeing stuff. Even though, this one doesn't have eyes and this one does, you can have it react to each other, and you still believe that this one is alive. So that's really cool. The most sophisticated puppet I have here is Elmer. He is a hand and glove puppet, which is more like you would see on the Muppet Show or something like that. He is very big and very fancy. And a lot of times you'll use two puppeteers to do this if you want Elmer to have two hands, because obviously as a puppeteer, I've only got one that goes in his head and then one that can come through his sleeve to be his hand. So, hi, I'm Elmer. So you can see these are more puppets like you'd see a lot on television. They use a glove, so it's an actual human hand that he can use. And then he has a moving mouth, so he can say hi to you, hi. So that's Elmer, and that's a hand and glove puppet. He could also have hands that are on rods, and that's a hand and rod puppet. Those are Muppety style puppets. There's also body puppets, which are giant things that you wear on your body. Parade puppets, which can be huge and gigantic, stuff that you'd see maybe like at an Olympics during the halftime show, those kind of things that are, gigantic things that take 70 people to move them. Those can also be puppets. So anything that you give the illusion of life to is a puppet. Why puppets? Why did I get into puppets? I think there's something about taking an inanimate object and giving it life that is delightful to the human brain. I believe that. Like even if you put a puppet in front of a toddler, in front of a baby who doesn't really know much else, but it'll be delightful. They'll enjoy it. So they'll giggle and laugh and what have you. As you grow up, you get the idea that, oh, okay, I get it. This is not alive, but it's being moved in a way that makes me believe it's alive. And that can either stay something delightful for you, or it can become something that frustrates you, that you're like, no, I know that's not alive, but I kind of think it is, and that's scary.